Hi, I'm Nicholas McGurr, author of The Afterlife and host for Stories in a Cemetery. You can find all my fiction works with themes of the afterlife on nicholasmcgurr.com. That's NICHOLASMCGIRR.com. As a writer, I do research, and that research is more than likely inside a haunted location or a cemetery. Like you, I'm curious about the afterlife, and always looking for a new topic for my next book. I hope you enjoy this episode of my research as much as I did in using it for my fiction works. Let's get into today's Story in the Cemetery. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 22 of Stories in a Cemetery. I'm Nicholas McGurr, your host and local author right here in Charleston. So if you're local, be sure to check out my work, my fiction work that is. So going right into some things that are happening with Stories in a Cemetery. It's been cold here in Charleston, believe it or not. It does get cold here in the South, and cold for us guys. It's under 50 degrees, and we can say it that my tours have been pretty slow because let's face it, who's going on a ghost tour when you can't stop shivering? So to be able to use the tools and gadgets of the tour, Stories in a Cemetery, it's really difficult to do when your hand will not stop shaking. So I have not expected a whole lot of tours, and that's exactly what happened. I haven't been very busy with the tours, but I'm expecting it to pick up here very soon once the weather breaks in the next couple of weeks. But you can still book your tours with me on Groupon. That is where you can find the best deals. You can either type in Charleston Cavalier Tours, or you can go right to the link in the show notes, and you can book your tour with me, which I believe there's a sale going on right now. Tickets are only $19, I believe, versus the normal $27. Guys, make sure you head over to Groupon, book your tour. You can book them months in advance, and we'll go ghost hunting together. It's a blast, and if you want to see what it's like, just head over to my website and listen to some of the tour audio and some of the things that we find. That's at nicholasmcgurr.com. So you can also leave reviews for the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, CastBox, or Anchor. If you leave me a ghost story through Anchor, which you can leave me a voicemail, which I think is pretty cool. I don't know that any other podcast hosts allow that to happen. I'll play your audio right here on the show, right in the beginning when I'm doing all my show notes. So my housekeeping stuff. So don't forget to check out the bonus episode and episodes to come on buymeacoffee.com. And those are based on Byron Price's Secret right here in Charleston. So we don't really look at the other solves and the other puzzles. We're not really chatting about things that are going on with the hunts and the treasure hunters out there, working in the other cities. We're focused in Charleston because we are in Charleston, and we actually have some pretty significant evidence that has come up. I am not going to reveal that. I am actually working on a letter to the landowners where we believe the cask is found. But if you are looking to follow what me and Brian McFarland are up to, make sure you head over to Buy Me a Coffee. And, we reveal some stuff. We're just not revealing the exact location. So if you're interested in how we're going about this and some of the thought processes that go along with it, just head over to Buy Me a Coffee, or you could check out episode 16. Just go back a few episodes, and, we launched the first Byron Price Secret episode, live without any kind of sponsorship. So you could check that out. Again, episode 16. Last but not least, on the housekeeping notes, guys, I do want to dedicate this episode to a very dear friend of mine who recently passed away. He was a colleague, a friend. He was a big supporter of the show. He would actually leave me emails and Facebook messages constantly about how he was following the show and loved what I was doing. So Scott, you are dearly missed, my friend. I know it's been a long time since we've seen each other, and I was very sad to hear of your passing, and my prayers and thoughts go out to the family. So, guys, we all deal with death. Even though I talk about it on a weekly basis, it's never easy to deal with, and I would tell you that one kind of hit home. He was a very good friend of mine. If you've actually had someone close to you pass away and you've had a paranormal experience with what you think is to be that person, let me know. I may not exploit it on the show, but if you want to tell me a story and just get it off your chest, it helps. So talk about it. April was my sounding ear when I was talking about Scott and, what a great man he was while he was here. And if you want to tell me something paranormal about somebody you lost, feel free. I'm all ears or all eyes if you want to just email me. But anyway, guys, let's get into today's show. This week we're talking about Magnolia Cemetery. So I don't normally go to cemeteries and claim them to be haunted. But a competing tour company is actually giving like ghost story tours through Magnolia Cemetery. And, I kind of wanted to dive in a little bit. And I was really, really surprised when I visited this cemetery yet again. I've been there numerous times, like some of the other locations that I talk about. But I was really surprised to see how Magnolia really ties back to a lot of the previous investigations that I've done. And I'll be honest with you, Magnolia Cemetery is huge. There's no way that I can possibly cover all of the stories, all of the tales, all of the history that this cemetery holds for South Carolina, simply because of the size of it. Guys, it's 130 acres. So imagine that. It's giant. It has over 35,000 burial sites. So if you head over to my website where the blog post is for this episode, you'll see some pictures where I actually used a selfie stick so that I could get a better perception of, how many people are actually buried there. And I can't do a selfie stick high enough. I don't even know if a drone would do this any kind of justice because it's that big and you have to drive through it. So what I will tell you is that when I was there, of course, I told you already that it's cold here in Charleston. So I kept the car going, kept it warm, had the seat warmers on, and I'm in and out of the car so I can gather pictures and do like 15 to 20 minute paranormal sessions with the EMF detector, spirit box, and those kind of things. But I had to use my car to get around. That's how big this place is. And I didn't even begin to cover the amount of pictures that I wanted to take. I don't even know how many I took, 40, 50 maybe? But I put most of the pictures up on the blog post, and they're stunning. It's an astonishing place. And I know that this is looked at constantly as somewhere that's haunted and holds stories, and it's true. And I wanted to kind of verify some of the things that were going on. But again, I'm not going to be able to touch on some of the deep, full history of Magnolia Cemetery simply because of the size of it, and there's too much. So if I found one story that links back to this, where it actually has a ghost haunting to it, or I can claim or put my finger on where the actual paranormal activity came from, then I might do another episode on that one specific story. But I do want to point out there's some famous burials there, and they're famous so much to Charleston and South Carolina. A lot of politicians, a lot of poets, authors, and definitely a lot of soldiers that are buried here. And again, I'm just going to say it was completely peaceful while I was there. There were people driving around. There was people working on the main building there because it does need some renovations. But even still, it was so peaceful while I was there. Getting in and out of the car, I almost felt like I had to tiptoe around just because I didn't want to disturb anything. And I will tell you that just like most old cemeteries that I visit or go on any of these kind of investigations on, I did find some vandalism, which is highly, highly upsetting. I don't know why people feel the need to ruin something that is in the memory of somebody else. First off, these people can't stand up for themselves or defend themselves unless, of course, they're coming back paranormally, if that's even a word. But when I see vandalism in a cemetery, especially one that dates back over 150 years, it hurts my heart, guys. So if you're out there and you see somebody vandalizing a cemetery, stop them. And I understand most of this stuff probably goes on at night and, kids want to have their fun. But this isn't fun. This is somebody's life that is being remembered. And I didn't even put up the pictures of the vandalism that I found, even though I did take pictures of it. I didn't want to depict that with Magnolia Cemetery because it was such a peaceful place. So some of the people that I do want to take note of, I'm going to go through a very short list. And granted, there are well over, I think it was 39 or 40 people listed as famous people that are buried there. I picked out a few names just because they were relatives to some of my previous investigations and other locations that I've been at, and it kind of connected the dots. That's the great thing about doing this and the research in one particular city is I can venture anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half outside of Charleston and do an investigation and come back to Charleston and still find a tie, which is super awesome. It actually excites me when I see the names that I've already been familiar with. So if you're any kind of historian or anybody that does any kind of research, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because it does kind of tie into certain things. The first name that stuck out to me, guys, was William Bull. If you don't remember, and here's the funny thing about this was I found a map of the cemetery grounds on magnoliacemetery.net, and William Bull was actually listed in the top left-hand corner as somebody that's actually buried there, but it wasn't on the list of famous people. So whether or not it's a descendant of the William Bull that I'm about to refer to or not, it's still noteworthy just because it came from a previous investigation of mine. So if you don't recall, go back to the Old Sheldon Church episode. I'm sorry, I don't remember the number. But the study that I did there told us that William Bull was the person who funded the Old Sheldon Church. And he is buried, or a descendant of him is buried right there in Magnolia Cemetery. So I found that super interesting. That was the first name that popped up. And then I found William Gilmore Sims. So if you remember last week, I talked about White Point Garden in downtown Charleston, which is right on the Battery, or White Point Garden is also known as the Battery. But I had a picture of his bust on my last week's blog post, and I went into his history a little bit further, only because I seen that he was pronounced the best novelist that America ever produced by Edgar Allan Poe. And of course, if you know anything about me, I'm a huge Poe fan as an English guy and somebody who loves the macabre. I would like to think that Sims and Poe actually spent some time together and kind of chummed it along as two authors. You know, I will say that I have recently joined an author group right here in Charleston, and it has been wonderful to talk a whole different language, even though it's still English, amongst peers. It's great. So I would like to think that Sims and Poe did the same thing during their time period of life. And I believe that would have been the 1830s or 40s that they would have been here at the same time. And William Gilmore Sims is known for writing the Yamasee, which is a fiction tale about, the hardships right here in the South. And what the funny thing is, if you go back to the Old Sheldon Church blog post that I posted, the Yamasee War was part of Old Sheldon Church. So we have two ties there, which was super awesome. So the next name that came up, guys, was Josephine Lyons Scott Pinckney, which you guys know I've already done the Pinckney Mansion site. She was a direct descendant of Eliza and Thomas Pinckney, and I just find it ironic that another woman from the Pinckney family, if you don't remember the story of Eliza, she was the founder of our indigo crops here in Charleston, and she was also the businesswoman that was able to sell the indigo crops overseas. So what did Josephine do? And I don't know the exact descendants of, if she was a great-granddaughter, a granddaughter, or how that worked out. I did not follow the timeline or the family tree, so my apologies for the lack of detail there. What fascinated me, though, was she was the founder of the Poetry Society of South Carolina. So she played a key role in the preservation of the Holy City because she was active in the literary community, and she influenced the American Scenic and Historic Preservation Society through the restoration of Charleston buildings and neighborhoods. So with her words, she was able to influence a lot of the preservation that happened here in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So that is super awesome too. And I know it seems like I'm focusing on authors and writers, but of course I'm tying these back to the investigations that I've already done. And last but not least that I wanted to kind of bring about, and it's a major attraction to Magnolia Cemetery, and I haven't done the full research here, only because I haven't done the investigation of the Hunley submarine, but the Hunley crew is actually buried there. And it's a big memorial site, like they have their own plot of land that's there, and it's a beautiful memorial site. So there's actually signs that lead you to it, because a lot of people will go to Magnolia Cemetery just to see this site, which is super cool. Cool thing about this is the author Clive Cussler and his group of NUMA, they found the Hunley vessel with the remains and some of the artifacts that were left inside the submarine. To commemorate this crew, they actually had a memorial service back in, I want to say it was 2004, where they actually built this entire memorial for Hunley and his crew. And again, it's a beautiful site. So if you ever, get the opportunity to go visit, that'll be one of the first things you notice, is because there's signs all over to lead you right to the Hunley Memorial site. I'm going to pause here, and we're going to go to a quick commercial break. And we're back. Thanks so much, guys, for allowing me to put sponsors in the show. It definitely helps move things along for Stories in a Cemetery. So, getting back to Magnolia Cemetery, I want to say that all of the pictures that you're going to see on the blog post, and I want to go back to this vandalism thing for a second, just because it goes down to a matter of respect when you're walking through a cemetery. For those of you, and there's a term for us folks, if somebody can remember what that term is, of somebody who likes to walk through cemeteries, please let me know. All of the pictures you're going to see, I walk in between headstones and make sure that I'm not stepping over the burial site of where a casket or a coffin or a tomb might be. And that's just a sign of respect. So if you are one of these folks like myself that likes to walk through it and see the different types of headstones and craftsmanship that goes into making these memorials, just pay your respects and walk in between. Just remember that there's somebody below you. Even though, if whatever your beliefs are, that their soul is still there or not, just have some respect for the deceased and walk in between the headstones, and know that the pictures that I took, I am standing in between headstones and so that I could take the correct angle of pictures. And I have to say, with this new camera that I have on my phone, I'm quite proud of the pictures that came up for this particular investigation. They came out stunning. They were gorgeous. I'm using a Note 10 Plus, I believe. April would know better because she's the one who got me the phone. But the camera on this thing is phenomenal. I absolutely love it. And if you have the opportunity to use like blurred background and actually touch up pictures through your phone, like that's how I'm doing this. The pictures that you'll see, like they actually really came out pretty good. I'm pretty proud of them. So anyway, walking through and driving through the cemetery, I will tell you that this particular cemetery, because of the history of it, and it does contain a lot of newer style headstones. And if you head over to magnoliacemetery.net, you can see like where the funerals are actually being held. I mean, they're still holding funerals there because there's still some ground to be used. But there's a history here, guys, that you just can't mistake when you're walking through here. The uniqueness of the craftsmanship and the stonework and the engravings that come up on these headstones and memorials is just, I can't even explain it to you. You could take a look at my pictures and kind of get a feel for it, but unless you're there, again, I will always tell you to go to these sites that I've been to get the sense of feeling that I get while I'm there, to see what I'm seeing. Pictures don't always do things justice. And I think that goes even for as proud as I am of the pictures that I took. You still have to be there to be able to see it, to feel it, to get your breath on it. Like you have to see this place. It feels like an art exhibit. There's no other term that I could come up with. And as many times as I've been here, this came to me with this last visit of, this feels like a lost art. These headstones are gorgeous. You can't explain what it is when you're there. It's a sense of peace, first off, but I didn't feel like I was alone, which is weird because in a cemetery, you normally have that alone feeling. For getting in and out of the car as many times that I did have my EMF detector with me, both spirit boxes running, the one on the app and a manual spirit box, and I actually got some activity. Surprisingly, I was surprised while I was there. The EMF, I will start there. It actually gave little blips from here to there, and I was unable to recreate. I mean, you have to remember, this is 130 acres without anything in sight besides the Cooper River. There's no electrical lines. There's nothing that could possibly influence. There's nothing running underneath these grounds besides caskets and tombs. So for me to get some blips on the EMF detector, I was pretty happy with that. It didn't go too far out of the green, because bright green is the first light on your K2. I went up about 2 lights at max, but to me that was enough. It was enough for me to get the feeling of, all right, my feeling of not being alone is kind of verified. Again, it wasn't me knocking the EMF or my phone too close or any of those things that, might debunk any of that. It was literally a sense of I'm not alone. People are just kind of watching to see what I'm doing, making sure I'm being respectful. It's just understandable for the amount of vandalism that's there. But that's kind of what I had going on. Then with the Spirit Box app, I'll start there. I had certain words come through, and they usually came through when I got back into the car. Like, it was pretty quiet for a while. Like, I was there a good hour and a half or so. And the words speed, coordinate, and squeeze came through. So in other words, in my small car, I had to watch my speed because these were dirt roads that lead you through the cemetery. I had to coordinate my next stop to watch for my next picture, my next picture rather. And I had to squeeze the little car in between the headstones. So that's kind of how I took that. They were almost precautionary words of how I should be acting while I was inside their cemetery. Take that for what it's worth, call it coincidence, but of course, my job is to put clues together. I did have the word perception come through, and I want to talk about this for a second because at the same time the word perception showed up on my phone screen, I also heard the word picture come through the manual Spirit Box. So with me taking as many pictures as I was taking, I took that as change my perception on how I was taking my pictures. So what I did was I grabbed my selfie stick and I raised my phone into the air and I started taking pictures that way. And I thought maybe that was somebody trying to tell me that I should take pictures with a different perception so that they could show themselves. However, after analyzing the photos, I did not have any orbs or anomalies or anything of that nature. I even took some video while I was up. I had the phone up in the air and it didn't catch anything other than a bigger piece of the cemetery that you can't normally see from the ground. Of course, unless you're 8 feet tall or so. But it did give me a wider view of what is actually going on here in Magnolia Cemetery. And that's where I get this vast feeling of it's almost like it's never ending. It's 130 acres. It's giant. You could drive around there literally for days and not be able to read all the different headstones or get enough pictures to cover the amount. So with that being said, I know that there are plenty of books out there that actually focus on Magnolia Cemetery. And one comes to mind that I actually looked into a few weeks ago before I even started this investigation, and it was called In the Arms of Angels by Patrick Harwood, I believe it is. And it's a beautiful book. He did an excellent job getting as many pictures as he possibly could, but even this 230-plus page book could not depict every single piece of art that is in Magnolia Cemetery. Again, that's how big this place is. And it's a beautiful book. Guys, you can check it out on Amazon. I'm not a sponsor for the author or anything of that nature. I love to give you guys those little pieces of extra to dive in for yourself instead of just listening to me and taking my word for it. I also noticed along the banks of the river was a receiving tomb. So I have to laugh because I did do the Julia Legree tomb, and I'm starting to feel like Lara Croft as a Tomb Raider when I came across this. And I don't know how I missed it before in all my other visits, but again, 130 acres, you're not going to see everything in one visit. It was interesting to see. It was semi below the ground, obviously for temperature's sake. There are pictures of it up on my blog, so feel free to check that out. I did not get any kind of weird vibes from it, nor did I get any spirit activity, paranormal activity of any sort from any of my gadgets or devices. Just an interesting piece of the history of this place that it sits right along the banks of the Cooper River. Last but not least, I was on my way out, and while we're talking about paranormal activity, there are several memorials that will honor the soldiers of different wars. And that's to be said with any cemetery, but when you have one as large as Magnolia, it's to be expected, I guess, but these were vast. They were large in size. And as I was leaving, I was passing a piece of the land that honors the Confederates that were killed during the Civil War. And the word soldier came through on the app. So I stopped my car, I rolled down my window, and I just gave a quick nod over as my last moment of peace in Magnolia Cemetery. Take that for what it's worth, guys. I don't find it ironic at all. I don't think that there is any coincidental anything that happened with that particular moment. But it was just somebody was saying, I'm a soldier, I'm here, I've been watching you, thanks for visiting. I'll probably end up going back. There, again, it's close. It's a peaceful place to be. There's bridges there. It's beautiful. So for a cemetery, if you're not one of those folks that's weirded out by going to a cemetery, I highly, highly recommend it. I do know that there are some other paranormal investigators that have gone there looking for things. And I believe I have enough proof. It's kind of like the USS Yorktown episode that I did, where it's just a peaceful feeling. You're not alone, but you're not creeped out either. Again, if you get the opportunity, make sure you stop by. There is a competing tour that will take you into a little bit further of the stories of specific families and people that are buried there. And again, I'm not going to endorse another competing tour company. But know that you can do that. Just simply look up Spirits of Magnolia and you'll find them. By all means, take that tour. Learn more about the Charleston history that we have going on here. There's a ton of it. I can't even begin to touch it, nor was I going to even scratch the surface. I knew that when I started this episode. I kind of knew this when I started the blog post. But then when I started realizing how many people were buried there and how vast of a place this is, it's got some hauntings to it. But don't take it as a negative. Not all hauntings are bad. Again, just like my friend Scott, maybe he'll come to me one day. Maybe you got somebody that's visiting you already. I want to hear about it. So make sure you head over to nicholasmcgurr.com, hit the Tell Me a Ghost Story tab. Tell me what's going on with your paranormal activity. Is it somebody you know? Is it somewhere you've been? Is it somewhere I've already been that you might actually have extra information for? Somebody got in touch with me a few weeks ago about a fact that I was wrong about, and I was not too afraid to say, I'm wrong about this. That's okay. If my fact finding isn't exactly fact finding or my assumption is wrong, by all means correct me. I'm not too afraid to say that my information is sometimes assumed, or I have to try to put clues together. So if my clues that I'm putting together aren't right, it's okay to tell me. I could take the criticism. I'm an author. If I couldn't take criticism, I wouldn't still be writing today. I would have quit 20 years ago. But anyway, guys, you guys know what to do from here. Head over to buymeacoffee.com, support the show, drop a buck in the coffee pot. You'll get those bonus episodes about Byron Price's The Secret. Even if you're not a fan of Byron Price's The Secret or have no idea what I'm talking about and you want to support the show anyway, just drop a buck in the coffee pot, or you can share this episode or the blog post with my gorgeous pictures. I will toot my own horn there. About Magnolia Cemetery. So, guys, that's all I have for this week. Thanks so much for listening, as always. I know I ran a little bit over. I try to stick it to 20 to 25 minutes with these episodes for you, just because I know we just need a quick fix from time to time, and there's plenty of other shows out there that do a full hour. But I wanted to give you guys a little bit more of how important this is. There are so many people buried here. There is paranormal activity. It's gorgeous. I wanted to present this as more of a tourist attraction, more so than a haunting, because it is a tourist attraction. It's open from 8 to 5 daily, from what I understand on the signs, and you can go visit this. You can go check it out for yourself. So guys, until next time, I'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks so much for listening to today's Story in a Cemetery. Be sure to check out the show notes with pictures and bonus audio sections on nicholasmcgurr.com. As you know, I'm a writer, and now you have another story that inspires me to write my fiction works. Be sure to share this episode on your social media or leave me comments on the Stories in a Cemetery Facebook page. I'll see you next time with another Story in the Cemetery.